Authorities in Madrid have taken their standoff with Barcelona to a whole new level, raiding regional government offices, arresting Catalan cabinet members, confiscating 10 million ballot papers, all to thwart a banned October 1st independence referendum. It's hard to see at this point how the vote can happen on the day, or can it? Madrid has won the battle, perhaps, but has it lost the public relations war? We're going to be asking about the reasons for a second attempt in 3 years at secession from Spain. Do Catalans really want independence? Why has the reaction been so much stronger this time? Where does it leave both the region and the nation? The separatist leader of Catalonia tells France 24 he's open to dialogue. So what is on the table? The crisis has all of Europe wondering, can cooler heads prevail? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the escalation between Barcelona and Madrid. And joining us from the Catalan capital, Isabel Helena Martí, a member of the Catalan National Assembly. Thank you for joining us in the France 24 debate.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here with you.
Also in Barcelona, Carles Bosch, who teaches at Princeton University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you to you.
Jean-Marc Sanchez, founder of the French-Spanish Bar Association.
Good evening, François.
It's good we have two legal heads instead of one, because attorney Eduard Salsas is with us as well. Eduard, half Catalan, half Castilian? Is that how you say it?
More or less.
All right, okay. The France 24 debate on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. Let's start with the latest. Thousands of protesters outside of Catalonia's High Court in Barcelona to demand the release of a dozen officials arrested on Wednesday for the planning of this referendum. This follows those overnight clashes with police over in Madrid, the Prime Minister warning Catalan officials of greater harm if they don't call off the vote. Erin Agunke has more.
Thousands of people in the streets of Barcelona. Here, demonstrators gather in front of the Catalan Ministry of Economic Affairs to protest the minister's arrest and to support the planned referendum. On Wednesday afternoon, Jordi Sanchez, president of the Catalan National Assembly, urged Catalans to continue protesting. His call was answered. Several thousand protesters took to the streets, prompting the Spanish Prime Minister to call for calm.
Stop once and for all this escalation of radicalism and disobedience. There is still time to avoid bigger problems. And no one benefits from this tension and this atmosphere of defiance in the face of justice and law.
The intensified protests were a reaction to the arrest of dozens of Catalan officials on Wednesday. After multiple raids, police say they seized close to 10 million ballots that were destined for the referendum. Spanish authorities have declared the referendum illegal. For the president of the autonomous region, the Spanish authorities are abusing their power. He denounced what he calls a totalitarian attitude.
We cannot gather, express ourselves, hold meetings, or make any decisions related to the debate about independence. But there is not even one parliamentary decree in Spain that allows the authorities to act this way. It's illegal.
For the Spanish government, the referendum is unconstitutional and does not reflect the will of the entire Spanish nation. Catalans plan to go ahead with the vote on October 1st.
Yeah, and we're already getting reactions on the hashtag F24 debate. This one, Catalonia, I don't want you to go, but you should have the right to decide. Let me ask you, Isabel Helena Martí, confiscation of 10 million ballot papers. October 1st, will you still be able to hold a referendum if you want to?
Yes, because a referendum is not only a matter of those pieces of paper, it's all the people of Catalonia. More than 80% of people of Catalonia want to cast a ballot on October the 1st. Besides, the Catalan government, the president of Catalonia has pledged to do that. So that's, of course, on October the 1st, there will be a referendum of autodetermination.
But how can you stage it if you don't have ballot papers?
Well, the Catalan government is working on that, and we are ready to follow any directions, and we will help them to make possible that on October the 1st.
Carlos Bosch, how's it looking from what you've seen?
Well, it's difficult to talk because there is so much noise that sometimes I hardly hear you. I see a lot of people determined. They want to vote. We have been trying, I think, in Catalonia to negotiate with Spain to hold a referendum. And in fact, I think it's 18 times that the Catalan government, the Catalan parliament, the representatives of the Catalan people in Madrid have asked the government in Madrid to hold a referendum. And the constitution has mechanisms to do that. So there are a set of mechanisms. The referendum can be called by the Spanish government if they want to. They can delegate the power to organize a referendum to the Catalan government or the Catalan parliament. And those referenda would not be, or that referendum would not necessarily be binding. It would be a consultation, which I think then would be followed by negotiations between Spain and Catalonia if there is a yes vote. And that is the case of what happened in Quebec and what happened in Scotland. There is nothing wrong with that. And I think that people understand that. That's why they are all protesting and demonstrating here.
Carlos, just can you play reporter for us? Tell us where you are exactly and what's going on behind you.
I'm basically in front of the Court of Justice of Catalonia, and people are protesting because yesterday the Spanish government, by surprise, detained 14 people, officials from the Catalan government, and they are holding them still detained. Some people want the government, the Spanish government, to release them because they have not committed any crime.
Now, let me ask you.
This has been done without.
Let me turn to Edward Salsas on this. The point made by Carlos Bosch that, we've seen independence referendums in places like Scotland and Quebec before, and the national governments allow them to go off. Why? What's going on in Spain?
Well, it looks like the Spanish government has not understood the place where they are. And this is an unprecedented situation in Western democracies where you can see that there's a vast majority of the population who wants to vote. Then the sense of the vote is another debate. But as it was being said before, 80% of the people in Catalonia want to vote. And as we heard yesterday, Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy, it looks that he has not understood. He does not understand the need of these people and what they want.
Yeah, there seems to be dueling illegalities because on the one hand, the Spanish courts banning the vote, and on the other hand, you have the president of Catalonia who reminded France 24 when he spoke to us of this Article 155 of the Spanish Constitution, whereby if you're going to go in with a heavy hand and impose effectively a state of emergency, then you have to issue a decree, and none has been issued.
You have three different ways to address the situation. The first one is the ley constitucional, which has been actually changed in 2015 when the Tribunal Constitucional, the highest constitutional court in Spain, ruled that they can suspend part or all of the local competences of Catalonia. The other one was what you're talking about now. It's Article 155 of the Constitution that could eventually suspend the government and the authorities of Catalonia. And there is the last solution that will be the Ley de Seguridad Nacional, the law of national security, that will be the nuclear bomb, like some people say. And I think, and I hope that will never happen. But from a strictly legal standpoint, these are the three different ways the Spanish government can
going
use.
in with these raids, going in and confiscating ballot papers, arresting officials, is it legal?
It is, from a strictly legal standpoint, complying with the Constitution, of Spain. Now, the perception is different from Catalonia. I think that this issue is more political than legal now, and that referendum should have taken place before it took place before actually 3 years ago.
Isabel Helena Martí, why is it so much more tense this time than back in 2014?
Well, probably this is a good question to put on the president of Spain, Mariano Rajoy. This is the way he's leading this political situation in Catalonia. Anything could be dealt with in peaceful and democratic terms, but he is the one who is addressing this coordinated attack to Catalonia by Spanish police forces. He's and his political allies, the ones that are choosing this way. There are many opinions about why he rather do that like that through repression instead in a more democratic way. Many believe it's part of the identity of the political identity of his political party. I don't know. We wish we would be able as Catalans just to cast a ballot in a peaceful, democratic manner, just make Catalans to decide about our future. But it seems that Mariano Rajoy is going to do anything available, even crossing all democratic red lines just to prevent Catalans to do so.
Edward Salsas, it was the same prime minister 3 years ago. What's changed?
Well, what it has changed is that now the Catalan parliament has said that this referendum that will take place on October the 1st will be binding, and depending on the result, potentially Catalonia could proclaim independence. As it was being said,
but why has it gotten tenser? Why is there more tension than 3 years ago? You heard Jean-Marc Sanchez say it's all political. Why is there more tension?
Well, because for 7 years, Catalans have been demonstrating and demanding this referendum, and the only answer that they have received from Madrid is it's not legal, it's not legal, it's not legal. It's illegal, and actually, even the term illegal is not well used, because the referendum is not illegal. It's unconstitutional. That's what the Constitutional Court has ruled, but it's not illegal. It's not provided in the criminal code that calling for a referendum would be illegal. And if it's not in the criminal code, it's not illegal.
So full disclosure, if the vote would take place, would you participate in the vote?
I would certainly do.
And would you vote yes or no to independence?
Well, yes or no, this is another story, and I would have to think about it. And what I would like is to have a peaceful debate where each party explains its views on the advantages and the inconvenience of leaving Spain and remaining in Spain, and be able to make myself up and decide in a peaceful way. And what we are seeing now is that in any case, people will go to vote on October the 1st without knowing, and this is the key question, without knowing what the union camp needs to say, because they haven't explained what's the plan after October the 1st. They are just saying it's illegal, this referendum will not take place, it's actually taking place. Catalans living abroad, like me, have already received our ballot, so we can potentially vote, but they have not explained what will happen afterwards. And what should these people do? Just go home on October the 2nd? It's a shame.
Carlos Bush, are you hearing what Edward Salsas is saying? That, well, there hasn't been a proper campaign, but we haven't had the proper debate of ideas before this vote.
Yeah, well, let me just say, though, that when we talk about, I want to backtrack a bit, and when we talk about tension, I think, it looks sometimes that, it has this negative connotation of almost violence, and I think there is a lot of tension coming from Madrid. They are sending hundreds of policemen. I don't see any tension in the negative sense here. It's very festive. People are very determined. They are happy to be here. Having said that, I agree that there has been no formal campaign. On the other hand, we have been discussing and debating these for the last basically 5 to 7 years. Everybody knows that a referendum is going to take place in October 1st. Right, like 2 hours ago, the government of Catalonia published a website where you can see where you have to vote. So they have already, we know where the ballot boxes are going to be. Everybody can go into the website, they can look at their address and where they have to go. So everything is going to proceed according to what has been promised. And yes, it's a pity that there is no formal discussion, but let's not, I mean, in a way, we have had this discussion. The problem is that the unionist arguments have been very poor. It's all about threats, the threat of leaving the European Union, the threat of, economic collapse, and they are threatening, but they are not,
they're not making their case. When we come back, we're going to talk about how in this daggers-drawn climate, the two sides can de-escalate. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. We're speaking while they're protesting in the streets of Barcelona against the Spanish police coming in, raiding Catalan offices, arresting 14, confiscating 10 million ballot papers, all in a bid to thwart a banned October 1st independence referendum in that region. We're talking about it in the company of Isabel Elena Martí, member of the Catalan National Assembly. Welcome back as well. To Carlos Bosch, who is a teacher at Princeton University and who's in the crowd outside the High Court in Barcelona, where those protests are going on. Here in the studio, we're joined by Edward Salzas, attorney, and as well Jean-Marc Sanchez, founder of the French-Spanish Bar, Franco-Spanish Bar Association. Is that how you say it?
That's right.
As we were saying just before the break, daggers drawn in the Spanish press. Let's show you just two headlines. Separatist ARA, their front page, in defense of our institutions back in Madrid. Daily newspaper El País. They have a lead editorial which is headlined "The Lies of Puigdemont." Puigdemont is Carlos Puigdemont. He's the president of Catalonia. In his interview with France 24, he insisted that the referendum must go ahead, but also says that the door is open for talks.
A majority of Catalans do not agree with the relationship between Catalonia and Spain. The Catalan side is proposing a solution to improve this relationship. We propose independence. But we are ready to hear any other solutions proposed by the Spanish side. But when I ask the Spanish leaders, including Prime Minister Rajoy, if they have any other propositions to make, they've always said no.
Now, Isabel Helena Martí, we heard on the other side, in an interview with the Financial Times, some conciliatory noises from the Spanish Finance Ministry. When Carlos Puigdemont says we're ready to hear any other solutions by the other side, what does he mean?
Well, we, from the very beginning, meaning we people who are pro-independence, who favor independence, we always have been willing to get a deal, to arrange things in a peaceful and democratic manner. And this has been the Catalan way, but after what happened yesterday, Catalan government has not control of their finances anymore. As Carlos Bosch said, 75% of all Catalan mayors have been summoned to testify without committing any crime, with the only aim of intimidate them.
But in that interview, excuse me, Isabel, in that interview, he says, we're in favor of independence, but we're ready to hear any other solutions proposed by the Spanish Prime Minister. What kind of solutions would you like to hear from Madrid?
Well, let's talk and just to hear what the Catalan people want to say. We are willing to decide upon our future, and we are willing to talk about anything regarding this. Just express ourselves about our future. That's it. And we're willing to reach any agreement, any that makes it possible for the people of Catalonia to decide.
Edward Salsas, is there a middle ground at this particular point in time?
I think that we are in a deadlock situation, and there needs to be a mediation from somebody who's outside this emotional tension between Catalonia and Spain, and outside the European Union.
So how do you interpret Carlos Puigdemont's remarks there that we just heard?
Well, what I think that he wants is to organize a referendum on a referendum on independence, but agreed with Madrid. That's what Western democracies have done in the UK, in Canada. So organize a referendum agreed with the country at stake, and to organize the modalities of a potential separation, but in an agreement, and that's what actually the majority of Catalans want.
Jean-Marc Sanchez, you heard there Edward Salsas say an outside mediator could help to soothe the tension and find some kind of middle ground.
Well, I'm not sure a mediator will never find the right solution, either for one side or the other, but let me clarify some more the basic issues. Where do we come from? 40 years ago, the Constitution of 78 was fully approved by all the local governments, including, at the time, the government of Catalonia. So we're now twisting the law that was approved by a majority of Catalans at the time. Now, when you talk about the majority of Catalans, who are we talking about and what are we talking about? Are we talking about the majority of people who want the vote or the majority of people who want the independence? Then who are the others and where are the others? Why don't we hear them? Why can't we hear them? In addition to that, as it was said before, the Spanish government could offer an alternative. They don't have to. In the Constitution, it's indicated that if there is a referendum, it would be a referendum for the whole country, not only a part of the country, even if Catalonia is a significant part of Spain. Now, there is something nobody talks about.
That wasn't the case in Scotland or Quebec.
Absolutely. But the same thing would happen in any other country. I mean, imagine
Scotland, it was just the Scottish who voted. In Quebec, it was just it wasn't all of Canada that voted.
Brittany wants to get off, or to get rid of France. Mm-hmm. Okay, should it be only the people from Brittany who decide that? So the issue is not only who should do what should be done, but also what would be the consequences. And the consequences will not only be political, but also financial. The origin of the problems is financial, mostly financial. And then it has become a cultural and political problem. But if you go back to the original Constitution of 78, you will see that all the local governments, the communities, are treated differently. And this is where the original problem comes from. It's not the only one, but if this would have been solved before, we would never have had the other problems.
Carlos Bush, a decade ago, we would have been...
Jump in, yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me just say that, two things. Building on what has been said, but also trying to amend it a bit. I think that the first thing is, it is true that this comes from the, goes back in time, comes from the Constitution of 78, and, there are more and more people here, so it's difficult to talk.
We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, good. So in the Constitution, there was a pact to make sure that we went into democracy, and the Constitution was written in such a way that you could interpret it in many, many different ways. So everybody went to the polls and ratified the Constitution, including the Catalans. But as I said, the writing was very ambiguous, very loose, and the Constitutional Court of Spain ended up being the arbiter of everything, the referee of everything. And it turns out the Constitutional Court is basically in the hands of the two majority parties of Spain, and Catalans are really a minority. They have no real voice or veto power. So the Constitutional Court and the government of Spain have been interpreting the Constitution in a way that erodes the Catalan autonomy. And so that's why in 2003, the Catalan Parliament approved a new autonomy law that then was approved by the Spanish Cortes to make the autonomy of Catalonia stronger and to protect it from interferences from Madrid. But then the Popular Party came in and appealed before the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court decided that the key provisions of this autonomy law were non-constitutional. And this is what has led to this sort of explosion of popular anger at being treated unfairly.
Yeah, Carlos
So,
Bush,
let
just
me
explain
just-
to us on this. Explain to us a point on this. A decade ago, we on this side of the Pyrenees would not at all have been surprised to be seeing this kind of referendum taking place in the Basque country. Why is it that it's taking place in Catalonia, not in the Basque country?
Well, basically, as I said, because the Catalans in good faith have been trying to have some kind of autonomy with fundamental political guarantees that the Spanish government is not interfering in everything that nominally has been transferred to Catalonia. And this has not been possible. So it has been, it's a long history of trying and trying and trying to be part of Spain in a way that everybody feels comfortable. And because of this intervention of the Constitutional Court and the Popular Party, remember that the Popular Party organized a campaign in Spain to get signatures to hold a referendum against the autonomy law. And now they do not want to have a referendum. It's really strange. So let me just conclude that I don't think the problem is financial at all. I think it's just a problem of political guarantees, of wanting to be autonomous, and now it's turning into something bigger, which is democracy and freedom, because the Spanish government is violating fundamental rights without going through any of the procedures that the Constitution that they say has to be protected. Those procedures, they are not using them, and I'm sort of amazed.
Edward Salsas, you just heard there Carlos Bush saying that it's not financial. However, some of the reports we're reading is saying it's got a lot to do with finances, that the Basque Country has a special deal when it comes to taxes, and that the Catalans feel like, well, they pay too much for Spain, and Spain doesn't give them back enough.
Well, I think that maybe 15 years ago, I would have totally agreed with you. When the independent side was about 10-12%, had 10-12% support, it was basically financial, I would say, and the claims from the Catalan people were basically financial. Now, what I see is a disaffection from Catalonia to Spain, and what I see is that during these 7 long years, as Carlos Bush was saying, after this decision from the Constitutional Court, where very, very basic provisions of the statutory law were banned and were considered unconstitutional, including the recognition that Catalonia is a nation. It has been like a way down, and now it's totally a disaffection, and you have a vast majority of people who want to vote and want to vote at least to make up their minds, and you have this nonsensical situation now in Spain, where you have other regions which are recognized as nations, but Catalonia is not recognized as a nation. And I mean, you don't need to add up a lot of factors to understand that, well, Catalonia is actually a nation and deserves to be recognized by the Spanish government as a nation, because Spain, at the end of the day, is the most diverse country in Europe, and it has several cultures, and this is what makes Spain special and makes Spain rich from a cultural point of view. So they need to recognize this diversity.
Jean-Marc Sanchez, Madrid needs to do more to recognize the diversity and the different languages and cultures within Spain?
Well, it's already done. We have 5 different languages in Spain. We have Gallego in Galicia, we have Euskera in the Basque Country, we have Valenciano, which is similar but different from Catalan, and Catalan in Catalonia, in addition to Spanish. I think that what has been said is right. It's not only a financial issue, it's now becoming a cultural issue, but there is something that is really obvious now in Spain, and you can feel it. I'm just back from Barcelona. It's Hispanophobia. You can really feel that a lot of people are not voting for Catalonia, but mostly and also against Spain. And this is where we are now. And I agree with what has been said before. This is a deadlock situation.
Isabel Helena Martí, that was the assessment made by a lot of people during the Brexit vote, that it was a vote not in favor of something different, but against London, against Brussels. Do you agree with Jean-Marc Sanchez that for a lot of people it's a way of venting their anger with Madrid?
No, I don't agree at all. From the very beginning of this process, at least for the last years, this is a movement, a bottom-up movement based on the idea of sovereignty for Catalonia, the idea of democratic advancement. So it's in favor of all those sort of values, not against Spain or against anyone. So, in favor of sovereignty, in favor of having the Catalan people the power in their hands to decide about their future. So this is why this is the so-called Smiles Revolution. Is not anger, is not hatred, is love for the more democratic values you can have in a democracy in the 21st century. So I don't agree at all about this idea of moving forward just for a negative feeling towards Spain. Not at all. Not at all.
By the way, wading into the argument, the Catalan capital's most recognized brand, the FC Barcelona Football Club, which read out a statement on Wednesday after the arrests of those officials.
FC Barcelona, remaining faithful to its historic commitment to the defense of the nation, to democracy, to freedom of speech, and to self-determination, condemns any act that may impede the free exercise of these rights. FC Barcelona, in holding the utmost respect for its diverse body of members, will continue to support the will of the majority of Catalan people and will do so in a civil, peaceful, and exemplary way.
Carlos Bush, your thoughts on that statement, which was read out, by the way, in English?
You know what? As I was listening to this, I think that Spain is losing Catalonia because in just one day, you count everyone, not just people, but you count all the institutions that come out to defend the right of self-determination. And it's just not just Barça, which is very symbolic, but you have all the trade unions, basically almost except for one, business associations. You get all the professional associations, lawyers, doctors, architects, most of institutions connected to the church. So it's basically everyone, and I think that they don't want to listen, and they are losing. They are losing Catalonia. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to end up, even if, for terrible, whatever reasons, the referendum doesn't happen. That's not the end. We are going to see, people pushing back in elections, always peacefully.
Let me bring in on this Jean-Marc Sanchez. Barcelona, by the way, the football club didn't say vote for independence. They said we'd like to see the vote take place. But what was your thought when you heard that statement read out by the football club?
Well, surprisingly enough, I'm not very good in football, but I thought the Barça was a football club, not a political organization. At the end of the day, what has been said is right, but it takes two to tango. And if Catalonia loses Spain, it will be as bad as for Spain as for Catalonia. If Catalonia, which is 20% of the net gross profit of Spain, goes away, then Spain will go from the 4th to the 14th country in Europe. but Catalonia will be out of Europe and will have to do all the way back again to come back for where it comes from. So I don't think it's a good idea to follow on this way.
Edward Salzas?
Well, I think that the demonstration, when people are in the street, you should give the voice to the people, and it's clear that there's a need to decide on this issue and to for or against, but a decision needs to be made, and we need to go forward and to evolve. And as Jean-Marc Sanchez was saying, it's true. The financial consequences will be tough for both sides. I think that tougher for Spain than for Catalonia. But in any case, well, it will not be the apocalypse, and independences have happened a long history, and it's something normal. And well, it takes two people to tango. Well, it takes only one people to divorce. So I don't understand where's the issue. Well, if the Catalans want to divorce, well, let them divorce. And if they don't want to divorce, then let them, reconcile their couple. But we need to hear the people. We cannot just, say, well, a poll says, and say that there's a majority of, well, let's call for a referendum and count votes. And at the end of the day, we'll have the answer.
All right, we'll continue to follow it. Edward Salzas, I want to thank you. I want to thank Jean-Marc Sanchez. I want to thank as well Isabel Helena Martí and Carlos Boix for being with us from Barcelona. Stay with us. Media Watch is next. And we say hello to James Creedon, who's firing up the computer.
Or not. Sorry about this, Francois. I think we'll have to cut to something else because I can't show you anything when I don't have the computer.
The computer's not turned on. Oh well.
Right.
There's the joys of live television. I just want, again, one more time, because this is something that's really haunting me while James fiddles with with the computer. The fact that you had, in that interview with France 24, Carlos Puigdemont saying how, the fact that the football team is expressing itself, it's like football has become this one place where you can express yourself like it was under Franco. And these allusions to the Franco era, and that we have this kind of standoff over human rights in that same way. Is that the way to be couching this?
I don't know, but when you reach that issue, it really means that we are coming back to a time of what we call in Spain las dos Españas, the two Spains, and this is where we are. We're coming back 80 years back ago, not 40 years. So that's really the issue. I fully understand what my fellow Catalan friends and Eduard is saying, but at the end of the day, I think that this referendum, or whatever you call it, consulta, as 3 years ago, should have been done before. This is where Madrid did wrong. I think they should have said, okay, let's try to find a way to get out of it. They did not. At the beginning, 50 years ago, it was different. Everybody was agreed for the transition, for the democracy. 15 years ago, it was mostly financial and tax issues.
So perhaps now it's too late, is what you're saying.
It's got to be very difficult this time.
Any daylight, any signs of de-escalation in what you've seen?
Well, I'm not sure about that particular question, but just to give you a run through, Francois, of what I've been seeing on news websites and on social media. Obviously, headlines such as this: the scale of repression over Catalonia is exposing the crisis of the Spanish state. So media across Europe and the world are really picking up on this and seeing it as a sign of a real crisis. Self-determination in Catalonia, everything is going wrong now between Madrid and Barcelona. Just one indication of those tensions. This particular number of websites promoting the referendum were shut down, or they attempted to shut it down. The .cat domain name, a foundation that supports that, their offices were in fact raided, and they were asked to take down a referendum website with the .cat domain name. But actually, you can see here Carlos Puigdemont sharing a .eu version with its domain in Luxembourg of the same website. So there was an attempt by the Spanish authorities to, I suppose, using the .cat domain name to kind of repress any information online about the referendum. And I think that has pretty much backfired because other websites other countries can host it. Just to look through some tweets coming in from elsewhere, this is in Glasgow. Of course, Scotland had its own independence referendum. Human rights lawyer Amer Anwar addressing a rally there in support of the referendum in Catalonia. You have people making reference to Franco. In fact, some tweets like that are quite extreme, but others maybe a little bit more measured, such as this one saying that the Prime Minister has ripped the country's old Franco dictatorship wounds open by using the military Guardia Civil against the Catalonian referendum. So there are references to that on social media. Quebec also expressing its support. I suppose, of course, there is still a minority of Quebec residents in favour of an independence referendum there too. And you have Edward Snowden sharing this article by The Guardian, and he is saying the Spanish crackdown on inconvenient speech, politics and assembly in Catalonia is a violation of human rights.
Did you see this coming? The rift that James is showing, that Jean-Marc is describing?
Well, after what we saw yesterday, it was very clear that this would happen. The Spanish government has taken very tough steps, and they are walking on the borderline between what is allowed and it's not allowed in democracy, about controlling media, about controlling the internet, about controlling private correspondence, about controlling people who are demonstrating. You need to be very, very sure to take these measures.
I'll just finish with this image. This is from a couple of days ago. Thousands of Basques rally in Bilbao to support the Catalan referendum and demand a similar process in the Basque country. One would imagine that that's obviously what Madrid is concerned about, that this is going to go beyond just the Catalan situation.
James Creedon, many thanks. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.